Good morning, afternoon, and evening to all of our listeners wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Cut the Carbon podcast. We're your link to climate advocates from across the globe and here to let them tell their own stories on fighting the climate crisis. We talk to our guests about climate matters that matter to them and how their countries are cutting carbon emissions. I'm your host, Patricia Manarang. For our first ever episode, we have Selma Bichbich from Algeria, who is also one of our country facilitators. Selma is here to talk about climate action in Algeria and the MENA region. Let's hear a snippet from this episode.
You have no idea how much we have, but still all of this is not being well used. And that's because it's always the same people who are leading, and it's always the same people who are they're making the same exact decisions and they are not even able to take the risk and try something new.
If you'd like to support this podcast and cut the carbon, don't forget to subscribe to our channels and follow us on our socials, which can be found in the description below. This interview has been edited for clarity purposes. Some audio issues may arise due to connectivity problems. Hello, Selma. Before we actually start, can you introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and tell us how you've been doing recently?
Thank you, first of all, for the beautiful invitation, and I'm really glad to be part of this podcast. As a first guest, that's really means a lot. So my name is Selma Bichbich, and I am a social and climate youth activist. Well, I have been actually pretty stressed recently because I'm struggling with the courses registration, and this is my last semester, so I'm supposed to graduate in the spring. So I can't wait.
May I ask, what program are you studying right now?
Oh, yeah, I'm a political science student. I'm also minoring in human rights. So I know, like, some people will sometimes be like, oh, you're a climate activist and you're studying political science. And I'm like, they're so related, trust me.
Yeah, politics dictates everything, so it's really important to know how it works too when working in the environmental sector. Let's start with our first question. Are there any specific impacts of climate change on North Africa? For example, is there anything happening recently that North Africa hasn't experienced before?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. To be honest, yes, North Africa, especially like in the recent years, it has been so affected with climate change. I mean, you guys have heard about the earthquake that happened in Morocco, and again, it's always the people who are the ones to get affected. So we have, on the other hand, Algeria that keeps on having floods, Tunisia as well, and the tornado that happened for the first time in Libya. So you can see that there is a huge impact on North Africa, and we don't see like campaigns being made before or after these disasters happen. Still, we're not seeing so much contributions from the government in the environmental sector. It's always the military that gets most of the funding. Just like recently we kept on having constant wildfires, and still we are still seeing the same type of trees being planted, even though we know these trees are like always threatened to be to cause these wildfires, because usually they are dry, and when we talk about dry trees, it's easy to have like the flames on them to be flamed. Farms became deadlands, which means they cannot give birth to any give birth anymore. We cannot plant in them anymore. All of this somehow is happening due to the impact, and I would say the neglectance that is coming from the global north countries, who keep on having their keep on focusing on their industrial revolution and their economical increase and profits and whatever. They are the ones somehow who are contributing to the increase of the gas emissions without really having any further considerations. And then the global south is always the one paying this, even though we barely contribute to that because we know, again, we are developing countries. So I would say, yes, you can see that so much is happening, honestly, in North Africa and the MENA region. Now we have seen it as well with the conflicts that are happening in the Middle East, and the impact actually will not be seen now. It will be seen after. It's high time really for all of us, like as civil society and youth, to really raise awareness about this and speak out about this, because if it wasn't us, then who will talk about this? Not our policymakers, for sure.
I just want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about the global north. That's a very relatable statement. I'm originally from the Philippines, and it's frustrating to see the countries with higher carbon emissions not making the necessary moves to address the climate crisis. And it's the youth that will feel the true effects of this 5, 10 years down the line, maybe even earlier. But that's a nice transition to our next question. Let's talk about youth led climate advocacy in Algeria. So, what would you say the state of youth climate advocacy is? Do they focus on certain aspects of climate change?
Again, that's another good question. To be honest, Algeria, maybe if I want to compare it to Morocco and Egypt and Tunisia, like maybe somehow the neighboring countries, I think it's placed at the bottom when we compare it to these countries. Like it's not improving at all. Like we actually even see that youth they want to be interested, but like they don't know how. I would not blame youth a lot somehow when it comes to not having interest because we see that the government is not pushing for it. They do push for youth being more involved in startups, establishment, or new innovations, incubators, anything that makes profits. I remember once I was invited into a big event here in Algeria, and they were all startup founders and like interest in incubators. I was really happy to see so many youth being involved in this, like, having their own thing that can, it's still like helping the society at some point. And then like I was the only one that was like an NGO founder, and everyone was like, "Why, Selma, you do have so much potential. Why don't you go for profit making?" I mean, like, I was like, I love doing this. It's not because like I want people to see me doing this. I like doing it. I enjoy it. I have like made so many youth like telling me amazing words that really touched me a lot. I have been inspiring to so many youth who wanted to do the same exact thing, and I push them to do this. Copy, do the whole thing, copy it. I don't mind as long as you do your own thing, and like you do it in your own space in your community. That means a lot already. For example, in Together for Blue and Green, we started really seeing so many youth like applying, and when we asked them about why us specifically, most of them said like you guys are bringing like another aspect of civil society on how youth should do their own thing, like because we are all youth led. We don't have any old people with us, and it's like, and we are all students, and like we just do our own thing with our own energy, with us being crazy and still do great work in the community. So like this was like something that let's say attracted so many young people to just be involved and want to know more and like simplify what climate change is really is. This is like something that really made me happy, but also when I see somehow at the high level it's always really complicated. Like we wanted, for example, to host like a regional summer program, and we are really struggling with so much logistics, so many policies, so many restrictions, regulations for us to just do something simple that is from youth to youth without really attacking the government. When you talk about the activists in North Africa or the Middle East or in general the global South, it's not the same activists that you talk about in Europe or the US. They are different. Like the circumstances and the obstacles that we face are not the same, and even like the resolutions and the approvals of such initiatives in Europe are not the same as they're done in Middle East, North Africa, or the global South in general. They are harder and more challenging in our region, and that's really sad.
I agree. There are big differences to our activism in the global south compared to those in the global north. Of course, everyone is fighting the good fight, but there's still a lot of factors that activists in the global south have to consider. So, leading on to our next question, are there any environmental groups from Algeria that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Of course, Together for Blue and Green is one of them. Plugin Association, they do great work. We do also have Algerian Youth Ambassadors. It's a very good foundation, and they supported us to start, honestly. We do also have Boom Community. I really like this one too, because when I first started my activism, they were the ones to introduce me about SDGs and stuff like that. We do have World Learning Algeria, who we collaborated with before, and they were also like funded by the US Embassy, and we always try to bring them to our events because they are great people, and I love their work, honestly. We also in Algeria, maybe something that is different than other countries is that we do collaborate a lot with foreign entities. For example, like Friedrich Foundation, the German one, also like with the American Institute, because it's a very, very active one, and they do give space to youth. The US Embassy as well, they do give really space to youth, especially to their alumni to always be to do things with them, because like they really highly encourage that. And they did support us, honestly, when we first wanted to host our own project. Also, we do collaborate with universities like the public sector. We do also, American Corner is also another thing that belongs to the US Embassy. Also, we do have the EU as well. They do have great stuff, but honestly, again, if I compare it with the Morocco and Tunisia, we are still in the bottom, unfortunately, because what they do with us is not same what they do in other countries. In other countries, they do collaborate with civil society like directly, but in Algeria, they don't.
Okay, let's go into some more specific questions. So, sustainable agriculture and food security are important everywhere, and especially for the MENA region. Are there any policies or initiatives related to these in Algeria?
Um, Personally, I haven't seen much. I do see it more in Middle East actually, and Morocco. Even Tunisia and Egypt haven't seen much. It's like Morocco, they do always focus a lot on the agriculture aspect, but maybe in Algeria, not much to be honest. Like because sometimes it's also pretty restricted when it comes to farms. So like they don't really trust youth a lot on that because they'd be like, maybe we already have deadlines, we don't want to really mess up with this because like it's something that you need to get approval from the government. Imagine like for you to volunteer and just go for planting trees, you have to get approval from the government. And usually this approval, they don't give it to anyone. Like you really need to have experts with you, like old people. Even if you say we do have farmers with us, they still don't give you approval. For you to somehow go for such activities, it's again pretty restricted. Maybe there are reasons behind that, because like of especially what happened with the burning and people also like consider the lands and farms something that is really sensitive and they don't just like trust anyone, which is pretty unfortunate because like I had a summer school on agriculture studies and it was actually in Jordan, and we went in a farm and we have been taught a lot of things on how to plan, what are the things that we need to consider. um how, for example, the Palestinian lands or the Lebanese lands are different from each other. How Jordan, for example, has like the special thing and Lebanon doesn't have that, the reasons behind it. So like I really learned a lot from that one summer school, and I was like, I wish we had something like this because we did have experts with us in Jordan and they taught us a lot of things and we even practiced it like on the ground. We were practicing what we have been taught, and it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. Like we can see that this is the agriculture sector is pretty dominant by old people, and that's really sad that we're giving it to them. I think it's high time for them to have more programs similar to these where we can be more involved to be more introduced to what is this sector about, because it represents literally the heritage of our grandparents and sisters, and we need to really value this and protect it to not lose it. We need to start trusting youth in this kind of new contributions that we can give. And we can really do a lot if we just have been given that one chance and trust it mainly.
Yes, it's unfortunate that agriculture isn't a sector that is being supported actively by the government, and that lack of support results in the youth not being encouraged to get involved in agriculture. So, going back to sustainability, what steps are the government taking to support the green and blue economies? So, for our listeners, the green economy refers to tackling biodiversity, ecosystem problems, while aiming for economic growth. The blue economy is part of that, but with a focus on the ocean and coastal resources.
Honestly, yes, yes, they started really doing that, given that Algeria is a Mediterranean country, so having like investments made in the region is pretty important. And we do know that Algeria is one of the most important um Mediterranean countries in North Africa, literally, because it's considered, like some people even call it the gate to Africa, And given the fact that we do have like we are pretty close to Europe and we do have the resources, it's actually somehow always like made Algeria as the perfect country to have these kind of investments on. We also started having more investments in the energy sector, given that we do have the deserts and the big Sahara. That's like something also made Algeria as a target for so many investments. But maybe the thing that I don't like about that is that they are always foreign investments. We're not somehow trusting our own people to make their own investments. We do have brilliant youth who are studying abroad and they can come and start their own thing in Algeria. They can maybe figure out what type type of investment is needed for the country. We don't have the right educational system for us to stay in our countries, but we can study abroad and come back to our countries and still do a lot. But if I come back and still you don't give me the floor for me to serve you, and you don't trust me, even though I know that I have so much potential and I can give a lot, then sorry, I'm gonna leave the country and go to countries that they do know the value of me, and the skills I have. And that's actually a mistake that doesn't, it's not only Algeria who makes it. It's the whole global South countries. They don't really value the amazing potential you have. But these Westerns, they do know how to invest in you, and they do know how to somehow attract you, because they see something in you and they be like, let me use it for my own sake, to serve my own country. Like, you have no idea how much we have, but still all of this is not being well used. And that's because it's always the same people who are leading, and it's always the same people who are they're making the same exact decisions, and they are not even able to take the risk and try something new. We were colonized by France until now we're still having them in our countries. They are still coming back for them to still like take as much as they can. You think like when they come and make investments that will be like just for the sake of Algeria, they're gonna get a lot from it. Like most of it, like I would say not even half of the profits. It's like mainly most of the profits will go to them and not to the country that they have been investing on. I see this like the new, honestly, type of colonization by using other countries, and that's actually the example of Algeria. I mean, just recently we started having new products that are made by people from the country. We did have like a new type of chocolates, and now they are being sold internationally. Imagine if we apply the same exact strategy on everything. How far are we going to go? If we don't invest in our youth, then who are we going to invest on? I do see that the most successful investment any country going to make is the investment in youth, honestly.
That's true. There is a lack of clear incentives from governments in the global south. The youth will try to seek greener pastures in other countries that may have more resources or more opportunities. Unfortunately, our governments don't really support local investments or local talent or ideas. You mentioned at the start of this interview that climate advocacy in Algeria, compared to neighboring countries, is not that strong. But how would you describe civil society's awareness and participation?
When it comes to the climate education aspect itself, I don't see much of that, honestly. We can talk about gender. Yes, they started really speaking more about this, like having especially women more involved for example, in the parliament, in politics. Also having women more involved in, especially like in the technical majors, like we are like pushing for that. However, when it comes to the climate aspect, we're not seeing that at all. Even like from the people themselves. The government first is not giving like somehow so much funding when it comes to anything related to environment. We're not seeing so much funding given to that. Compared to, again, to the neighboring countries, Algeria is the least. I think it's the country that is not really interested in having environmental investment or agricultural investment. I mean, just during COP, I think the one in Dubai, COP 28, Algeria was not even present there. So that tells a lot already. Also, you will be so pressured and so burdened with a lot in your society to a point where you actually forget to advocate for anything that is happening at the grassroots level.
Sometimes climate activism is seen as a privilege because we don't see climate change as the immediate problem. We just want to feed our families, get a job, and we don't see that all our problems are connected to the climate. Food security is affected by climate change, job productivity, and even the way we commute to work is affected by climate change. Everything links back to it. I know this next question may seem like a big ask, but what concrete steps do you suggest people from Algeria take if they want to get involved in climate action?
Honestly, I think start first by having your own interest. Like start by identifying what are you interested in. Sometimes it's not only about climate, sometimes it's about other things. I mean, trust me, any country has plenty of challenges. Sometimes it is about poverty, sometimes it's about education, sometimes it's about health and well-being. And then second, of course, don't do it for the sake of that one scholarship who asked you to volunteer. Do it for the sake of you wanting to leave your own print. So if you ever want to do anything, please like do it with passion. Do it because your community needs it. So this is actually the best part. Look at activism work and an advocacy journey this way. See it as a beautiful journey, same as your academic journey, for them to be more interested in this. It needs to start with passion, and it needs to start, even if you have zero experience. I mean, we all have that one first experience and we all started from zero. No one born as an expert.
Yes, it's about finding what you're passionate about and what you want to do for the community, and the rest will just follow. Before we end, Selma, would you like to tell our listeners where they can find you? Do you have any parting messages for them?
I am also, by the way, a co-founder of a regional network called MENA Youth Network. It both covers MENA, North Africa and Middle East. It's called MENA Youth Network, so you can always find us on Instagram and LinkedIn, and yeah, of course, by the way, always in our events and projects. So it's Together for Blue and Green. You will see in our pages that we mention always who we collaborated with, so you can always find them there as well in case you're also interested in exploring the other NGOs and networks that we do have our collaborations with. And then you can check them and see with whom they do collaborate, maybe just in case you're interested. Please do not hesitate ever to reach out. You will also find our own bluegreentogether@gmail.com. We are always happy to hear from you, and our team, who is the communication team who is behind our social media handles. They're always very responsive. And yeah, maybe the good news that I can share here as well is that we are also in the process of making our own website, and it's going to be shared on and will be available in our bio by February. So make sure to check it out because it also has another project inside it. I will not announce more than that, but please make sure to check it out. Please, always, 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 if I can ask you any favor, any request would be don't repeat our decision makers' mistakes, handle things differently, lead differently, and always aim for leaving your own print, not only just doing things for the sake of the other to see it, but for you to die with a print. Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much, Selma. It was a pleasure getting to talk to you. Thank you for taking the time to share your insights on Algeria and climate change.
And thanks to you for this initiative. This is actually what we need. These are the initiatives somehow that keeps us going, honestly. And these are the type of initiatives that makes other youth having this passion and interest to be in this place talking to you and sharing about their own experiences as well. So thanks to you as well for making this beautiful initiative.
What a dynamic first episode. We talked to Selma Bichbich about the struggles Algeria faces when it comes to climate action, youth involvement, and environmental investments. Let us know your thoughts in the comments or through our social media. We'd love to start a discussion with you about today's episode. In our next episode, we talk to Gracious Chirambo from Malawi about how the recent actions from the US affect low carbon emitting countries. So keep your ears peeled for that. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Follow our Instagram at cut.thecarbon, our Blue Sky at cutthecarbon.bsky.social, and our LinkedIn, Cut the Carbon. Visit our website, cutthecarbon.eco, to learn more about us. Thank you for tuning in. Never forget that the climate crisis isn't fought alone or through only one way. Bye! See you next time!